You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, we are Enterprise-splaining, the podcast where we explain Star Trek Enterprise to each other and to you. I'm Maria, and these are my co-hosts, Bill.
Hello.
And Jamie.
Hi.
And today we have a special guest host. Our friend Christian is joining us. Welcome, Christian.
Hi. Glad to be here. Thanks for asking.
Christian, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background with Star Trek in general, and with Enterprise specifically?
Well, I mean, I came around, not that long after the original series came and went. So I kind of grew up watching reruns of the old series. And I guess I'm old enough to admit it now. One of my first TV role models was Mr. Spock.
Excellent.
That's awesome. So you're an old-time Star Trek fan.
Yeah, I remember watching the animated series.
You are very much like Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Really, you think there's some similarity between our experience?
Can't quite pin down what
be.
that would be, but there's a lot. There's something there.
So, yeah, been a Star Trek fan my whole life, conceptually. Some shows more so than others.
Guessing Enterprise is at the top.
So, and how about Enterprise? Did you watch it when it first came out?
Oh, man, I tried. I don't think I made it all the way through the first season. Just sort of shuddered to a halt. And then I think it just kind of fell off on the list of things I was going to remember to do. Yeah, and then all of a sudden, it's like, wait, it got canceled. Wait, it's season 4. Oh, all right.
Did you ever go back and try it again?
Always intended to try it again. And then I kept finding other things to do.
Better check and see if these tax receipts are still current.
Right. Have I bathed my dog this month? Let me go do that. But I picked it up again when I heard from you guys that you were doing this and that you might want to rope me in to host at one point. That's okay.
Today, we're going to be talking about Season 1, Episode 8, Breaking the Ice. However, Christian is the only one here who's actually watched it, so it's his job to explain to us what happened on the episode. But before we get to that, let's first talk a little bit about last week's episode. Last week, Jamie told us about the episode The Andorian, and I was finally able to watch it. I don't think either Bill or Christian have had a chance to watch it.
I have not.
So that's okay. There were a couple of things I wanted to mention after watching it. First of all, I did not really like this episode. I thought it was pretty terrible.
But Jeffrey Combs was in it,
and he
every
is
scene with him.
spectacular. So the couple of things. One was, I remember you being kind of confused at the cold open just sort of ending suddenly and abruptly, and the reason is that was, I believe, the first time since the original series that the Andorians had shown up. So just the Andorian being there was the big punch. That was the big deal. So that was why it was such a weird, like, suddenly ended cold open.
Yeah, it felt like it was a very quick cold.
Yeah, it was.
Like, it was over very fast.
And the only other thing I was going to say was at the beginning when you were talking about, like, when they show up and start acting like terrible space tourists. I think you're right. I think that was intentional because it looked like T'Pol was playing along. So I think they were doing that so that they could, like, show, like, be all casual and then find the Andorians.
It
was still dumb.
I felt like they could have done it without, like, disparaging the religion of another culture.
Fair enough, and absolutely accurate. Also, zero reason for Archer to get the shit beaten out of him when, like, to figure out that hole connected to the other side when they literally could have looked in the hole and seen. It made no fucking sense.
Yeah, like 2 scenes later, like, Malcolm is looking through the hole and they actually have the camera, like, to what he's seeing, so you see what it looks like if you look through the hole. I was trying to think today how it maybe could have made sense. And I was thinking, like, if the holes were, like, really high up where they couldn't really reach to look through it, but you could still, like, blow it up and then climb out, then it might have made sense.
It seems to me that we spend a lot of time saying, if they'd only done this, then that might have made sense.
It might have made sense. We try so hard. So now that we got that out of the way, it's time to talk about this week's episode. Computer, what episode will we be talking about this week?
Breaking the ice. While the Enterprise crew researches a newly discovered comet, Archer tries to deal diplomatically with a Vulcan ship that is suspiciously watching them.
And now it's time for Two Truths and a Lie. Christian's going to tell us 2 truths and a lie about this episode, and you can guess, we can guess, which one is the lie.
Everyone can guess.
Everybody can guess.
Well, here we are. 2 truths and a lie about episode 8, Ice Ice Baby. I'm sorry. I meant ice to see you.
Everybody chill. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, the first one. True or not? Malcolm and Mayweather get nagged at for building a snowman while standing on a comet's surface.
100% plausible.
The next one. A visiting Vulcan commander pisses off Archer by saying Porthos stinks up the entire ship.
100% plausible.
Okay.
And
You could have just stopped at a visiting Vulcan commander pisses off Archer.
Archer is actually pretty pissed off.
He's
this
pretty pissed
entire-
off in all
Every
episodes.
episode.
He's just so angry.
Yeah.
He's so angry.
And the last one, Trip actually feels guilty for treating T'Pol like shit.
Again.
Oof.
All right.
Okay, I want to hang on. I'm going to hang on to the snowman one just because I want it so bad.
As being the lie?
No, as being the truth. I just want that. So I think that my guess is that the lie is a Vulcan commander pisses off Archer by saying that Porthos stinks.
All right. I really want the snowman thing to be true, but here's why I think it's not true. Because you said Mayweather, and Mayweather doesn't get any scenes ever, so I'm gonna call that one the lie. Jamie, what you think?
Yeah, I was gonna say the snowman too, because I just this show doesn't go up into the mountain. Like they're going up into the mountains into actual snow to film.
No, he
this.
said it was on a comet. Oh,
Yeah, but
I
to
see what you're
film
saying.
it.
To film it. Yeah.
Like, yes, there's snow,
Where
but
was this
the
filmed?
furthest they go is the desert usually.
All right. So, well, we're about to see who was right. Christian, why don't you get started with the episode?
Alrighty. Okay, we start off with Enterprise flying through space, going God knows where. Inside, Trip and Phlox are sitting at a table, I guess in a mess hall or something.
Food again. It's
Oh, God,
always
no.
food, you guys.
Yeah.
There has never been an episode.
What are they eating?
It's not, I don't think they're actually eating. I think they're just sitting at the table because they're looking at
Oh.
drawings from Trip's nephew's 4th grade class.
They're getting mail?
Well, that was kind of my question. It's like, how did they get these pictures? I mean, these are
Yeah,
all
like, is it on
sheets of
paper?
Yeah, they're all sheets of paper. And, and it's all like your typical kid art. I don't know if they were emailed as attachments and then printed somewhere on the ship. It seems dumb to have this printed.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's plausible.
Do they swing by Earth and pick up their mail every once in a while?
Maybe because
I don't know. Because if FedEx already goes out there, then maybe they don't need to be going anywhere at all. Anyway.
Was there a little space mail car that detached from the ship and took off the other direction?
There's a little red flag that sticks up on the side of the ship, and they want to send stuff back. So while they're looking at these pictures, T'Pol wanders by. And of course, T'Pol can't wander by without Trip harassing her. So he hands her a picture drawn by what, to my eyes, looks like a blind person who had Spock described to them.
you mean a child?
Yeah. I don't have kids. I don't know anything about kids. T'Pol, looks at this and then looks at Trip like she knows that he drew these pictures himself, and this is just a call for help.
Hold up. I think you're onto something here. This solves the mail problem.
But then she gets distracted because the Enterprise drops out of warp to look at a comet. There's an actual comet in space. And all the humans are
That's where you
super
find 'em.
excited to see it. And I'm starting to think that maybe we're not ready for space travel yet to get this excited about a comet.
Yeah, I was gonna say like they never because these. I assume. Okay, sorry. This warp. I get that the warp 5 engine can go further than anyone's gone before, but clearly the slower engines could still get them to comets, which are not that far, and presumably the people on the ship have other space travel experience.
Right, like there's
we have comets
Mayweather,
here.
who is a cargo, like has all that experience in cargo ships and whatever. Like
Everything is the first time for this crew. Absolutely everything. Finding a planet that has green grass is the first thing.
true.
But while they're all gawking out the windows at this comet, Paul goes back to her room and looks at a message that just arrived. You know, her normal, like, day-to-day blank stare gives way to a kind of blank stare of vague disquiet. So you can't tell me she's not a good actress.
Resting vague disquiet face.
Can we put that as a potential episode title?
And it fades to black and credits.
Okay, that brings us to the theme song, which
Yes.
means, Jamie, it's time for the Diane Warren update. What do we got?
All right, so this is a big Diane Warren update for me this week because this week Diane Warren liked one of my Instagram posts.
Huge. I literally, when you
Amazing.
texted that, was like, oh my God.
I put up an
Which
is weird
Instagram
'cause I was
post
at work.
about, I realized I should probably tell my Instagram followers that I have a new podcast. So I posted about it on Instagram. And then because every time I talk about the podcast, I'm always like, and did you know I also talk about Diane Warren on every episode? Clearly the most important part. I mentioned that and I tagged her. And then like a good 2 days later, she liked it.
Awesome. Awesome.
And she's definitely running her own account because it's not very professional.
Yeah, I mean, Diane Warren doesn't need people to do her social media.
Do you suppose that Diane Warren has a Google News alert, like Diane Warren Star Trek Enterprise set up, and that this went off for your post, and it's the first time this has gone off?
And I
in
hope
like 10
that
years?
the sound for the notification is Faith of the Heart. Like a Muzak version.
People keep changing it to a Meatloaf song or some other power ballad she didn't do anything with.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, this isn't about me or my Instagram. This is I do have a real
Could
update
be.
this week. And that is that the documentary Diane Warren Relentless premiered at South by Southwest last week. I still have not seen it because as far as I can tell, unless you were at South by Southwest, there doesn't appear to be a way to watch this movie. It's also not
always
clear
a
that
way,
there will
Jamie.
ever be a way to watch this movie. I couldn't find anything saying that anyone is paying for it, any streaming service. So
Right.
in lieu of watching it, I read a whole bunch of reviews and interviews with the director just to try to find out what's in it. I cannot find any evidence that at any point she mentions Faith of the Heart or Star Trek.
That's too
I would
bad.
that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Maybe
Sure.
there's a scene where she's asked about it, but it's not brought up in any of the reviews of it.
Well,
It's not the central
When-
focus of
Apparently
the
not.
documentary.
when this documentary, as it inevitably will get picked up by Apple TV or whatever, we should do a separate special episode about
should.
that where you watch it. And
I
tell us,
watched it.
or
I love that.
where Bill watches it and tells us about it and you don't.
You keep telling me you don't want 4-hour episodes, and then you suggest
That's fair.
Jamie try to summarize the Diane
That's fair.
Warren
That's fair.
documentary
That would be
for
a
us.
very long podcast.
One that I'm pretty sure all of our listeners would skip, but I would
You might
do
get a
it.
second
it would
like,
be
though.
super fun.
But so I did learn a bunch of things that are in the documentary about her. That first of all, I always say that she doesn't have an Oscar. I want to just clarify, she does have an honorary Oscar. They gave her an honorary Oscar,
nice.
I think around 2016. Apparently, if you lose enough times at the Oscars, they just eventually give you like a
Like a consolation.
Like
a
a
consolation Oscar.
Here, take one of Meryl's.
Yeah, right.
But hers was truly like, because I remember watching the Oscars that year, and it really was like they were just like in middle of all the other awards. They're like, oh, and by the way, let's have Diane Warren come up and like get her honorary Oscar. It's like when universities give out like honorary degrees.
Yeah.
And one of the things I learned from these reviews was that she actually owns her entire catalog all the way back to her first song.
Oh, that's impressive.
She like negotiated that from the beginning. And it is now worth $500 million, which makes her one of the most successful women in the music industry.
That is amazing.
I wonder how much of that 500 million is from Faith of the Heart.
You say that as a joke, Jamie, but one of the best things you can do is have your song be used as a TV theme song, because every time they play it, you get a piece. You know, the Rembrandts for Friends, one hit wonder, probably one of the richest musical groups in all.
You know, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, actually, maybe a huge chunk of this 500 million is from Faith of the Heart.
If she gets paid every time it gets watched, I don't know, because contracts have like screwed over so many people, and particularly with music.
Yeah, I just remember like the actors' strike last summer when Suits was the biggest show on streaming, and the Suits stars were like, "Oh yeah, I got a check for $70 or whatever." And she's a businesswoman. I can believe even by 2001, she'd been in the industry at least almost, I think, 2 decades at that point. I feel like if she knows this is going to be for a TV show, she probably negotiated a great contract for herself. Obviously, she wouldn't have known about streaming, but I'd like to think that every single episode that we watch, every time that song comes on and we groan, she's like going to the bank with that. But just a couple other little things. In an interview about the documentary that I read, she was asked if she had a choice between winning an Oscar or never winning but getting nominated every year. She said she would go with never winning,
because then you get to go to the Oscars every year.
It also means you have a hit song.
Yeah, you get to go every year.
That too.
And honestly, like, if you think back, like, if she had won the Oscar back in the 90s for, like, Don't Want to Miss a Thing, I don't even know if they would necessarily be nominating her. Like, I feel like a lot of the reason she gets nominated every year is because she's built up so much respect that even when she writes a song for a Cheetos movie, they're like, it's Diane Warren, gotta put her on the nomination field. She also mentioned that, like, the fact that it's kind of become a joke that she's been nominated now 15 times and never won has gotten her so much attention, and she really like loves the attention from that.
Of the Oscar.
Nice.
Apparently she just like works and works and works. Apparently one of the reasons she doesn't do many interviews is because while she's doing interviews, she'll get anxiety because she's not working. So she doesn't want to like spend the time to do interviews. And in fact, even when they were filming the documentary, the filmmaker said sometimes like she would promise them 2 hours of filming on a certain day, and then partway through she would just get so much anxiety and she'd be like, no, I need to go work right now. I need to go work. And she would just like cut it short and go work.
At all.
And lastly, last fact, despite the fact that almost all of her songs are love songs, she is not interested in love for herself. A quote from the movie is, "I don't want to be in a relationship. It's not for me. It never was." So I love that. Asexual icon.
She does want to miss a thing.
So I thought that was interesting. I didn't know that about her. So, that's what I found out from reading about the documentary.
Well, you should go to festivals to get distribution, so that's the first step.
We might see it. You don't know.
What does the phrase "faith of the heart" actually mean?
Hell no, we're not. We can't.
Don't worry
This
about
is the point in the episode where I go, we cannot keep talking about the theme song. Like every episode we have this and we go off and we're like, why? Why does this happen? And we
I haven't had the chance to go off though. It always seems like a euphemism for a medical condition.
It sounds, like all great songs, it sounds like it means something.
I've got a trial defibrillation. Someone get me to a doctor. It could work.
Most musical compositions do not stand up to close inspection.
Short of breath, finger tingling. I'm coming to you, Elizabeth.
All right, that's
okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean to insult Diane Warren in front of Jamie.
We can insult the song. We have insulted the song.
No, Diane Warren, I admit, sounds very impressive.
Yeah, it seems like as a
person.
human being, she's very cool. She also...
This song might be her nadir. Apparently, the new song she's working on is really good. I know that she mentioned that she thinks she's going to get the Oscar next year for it, but also in an interview with the director of the film, he was asked, what is your favorite Diane Warren song? And he was like, honestly, I got to hear the one that she's writing right now. She hasn't decided who's going to sing it yet, but he's like, it is her best one. It made me cry when I heard it.
Awesome.
I'm really excited. So maybe she actually will get an Oscar next year.
That's awesome.
So we'll hear about it here when that happens.
Yeah, we will definitely hear about it here. All right.
A good 6 weeks
That's
after
right.
it happens.
Okay, thanks, Jamie. So now that we've done the theme song, let's get into the episode. Christian, what happens next?
Okay, after the whole comet excitement has cooled off, there's a trip again in this, I don't know, you've probably seen it before already, a 1950s era cafeteria with the sliding glass and you pull a tray of food out.
Yeah.
Wait, I don't
really?
think we have seen that.
Gator, I don't think we've seen the version with the sliding panel.
Yeah, it's
before,
just,
which is very sort
like
of
you've seen
original series.
slide the things open, and maybe they made it up just for this episode, but he pulls out a piece of pecan pie and just digs right in. And this becomes a theme. While he's doing that, T'Pol wanders in, clearly just
she gonna
walking
say
over
something
to
about
get some
his food?
tea, and we can't
She's not.
give her 1 minute apiece. So Trip offers her, of course, some pie, interrupts what she's doing, offers her some pie. She points out that it's nothing but sugar, and she has to spend 24/7 in a skin-tight cat suit because her job is to corral the male gaze so other women, meaning Hoshi, can do their work. I mean, some of that might have been subtext.
Is that the purpose of her outfit?
She did say the thing about the sugar, but I think the rest of it's a great scene.
She telegraphed the rest with her eyes.
Okay, wait, stop for a second. There's
No
no
replicators. There's
replicators,
somebody
right?
named Chef.
There's somebody who just made an entire
Well, I
pecan
think he made
pie
it for,
Trip?
this is just a piece of pie, so he must have had a whole pie and then chopped it up.
Okay, it was
Oh,
a
yeah,
slice
yeah,
of
yeah.
pie. It was like
That
pecan
would have
pie
been
day.
amazing if Trip
Enterprise.
pulled out an entire pecan
Pie.
pie and just started digging
Right.
into
This will
it.
go
and then offered some to T'Pol. Yeah, that would have been amazing.
Yeah, this will go great with that pan of lasagna I just got. But
This fucking mess hall is just a den of horrors.
it's starting to look like a food court.
There's always food commentary. We have not had one single episode where somebody hasn't made a comment about somebody else's food, or there's been some sort of food situation. It's bizarre. Okay,
Yeah.
please continue.
Well, Trip is annoyed that Vulcans don't have a sweet tooth, apparently.
He's annoyed that she didn't want a bite of
Yeah.
She's gross anyway.
Well,
like your
it's
nasty
hard to
pie.
tell when he's annoyed. It's just that look he has when he's not smiling, and she has just sort of turned her back on him and walked out. And he's trying not to look at her ass, but it just goes back to
Failing.
eating, and then the scene ends. And then we're back to talking about the comet. So T'Pol is telling Archer and Trip, and now that I think about it, all the scenes with T'Pol also have Trip in them, which is concerning, because these two characters should not be together at all.
Strong disagree. They are the power couple of the show,
I
as far
actually,
as I'm concerned.
I think that might be what they're setting up.
Yeah.
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 Oh, I agree.
feels like it.
And there's evidence later. But this comet has large deposits of this compound, some made-up name that I forgot to write down, but I just call it MacGuffinite.
Sure.
So it's full of MacGuffinite, which Vulcan scientists have never had the chance to really study in detail, probably because these Vulcans have no curiosity, but they just haven't had much of it. And she says that the comet is, the comet nucleus, 82 point something kilometers in diameter, which just blows Archer's mind because this makes it the largest comet humans have ever seen, except for example, the 3 comets in our solar system right now that are larger. It took me 45 seconds on Google to find these things. The largest of these is actually almost 3 times larger than this MacGuffinite comet.
Okay, this was 2001 though, so I don't think we had discovered as many comets.
Maybe. I didn't check when these were
These other big comets maybe had not been
after this
discovered
episode
at
first
that
aired, all the scientists were like,
When they were
I'm going to
writing
find a
this."
bigger one. I'm going to show these fucking
Just so I
Archer.
don't have to watch the show anymore.
So it's like, okay, well, we need some MacGuffinite. Why can't we just beam it up? right?
Yeah.
But the MacGuffinite is buried at least 20 meters under the ice. And I know that the transporters are kind of new to them.
They are.
But is beaming through 20 meters of ice tougher than beaming through 100 miles of atmosphere? Or maybe through an entire planet if the person you're beaming up happens to be on the far side of the planet from where you're orbiting? I don't understand.
Well, part of the obviously these are new things, and they haven't really tested them out with people. Is one of the big things they're doing here. But they have transported weapons into caves.
Yeah.
And I believe that did they transport something down to Malcolm when he was injured in that terrible episode?
I don't think they transported it down because I think
Okay.
I think Archer and Trip had to come down and get him.
But in the last episode, they transferred
They
like
did
3 people down to the planet.
it's
Whatever.
never asked, never answered.
And they transported them underground. Oh, no, wait, never mind. I think they transported them into that room with them, and then they went underground. I never really thought about using transporters for, like, mining purposes, but that feels really
why
smart.
wouldn't you? Just beam up a chunk of it, see if it's got the stuff you need, and if not, toss it out the back door and go get some more of it.
It's being blocked by story problems.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So obviously they can't beam any up, which means that someone's got to go get it, which is fortunate because Malcolm and Mayweather haven't had any lines yet.
All right.
So they're going to put those guys into a shuttle pod and let them go land on the comet.
I'm so happy for Travis. He gets to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually have a Travis
Maybe.
episode,
Let's
finally.
see how much he does.
I think we've determined that Malcolm is the head of security. Does Travis have a job, or is he just like space intern?
Isn't he the pilot?
Oh, the navigator?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, he's
sure.
the navigator.
Okay, let's send the chief of security and the navigator to
Right.
the comet.
I mean, they're the mining A-team.
Do you,
Okay, well, to be fair, Malcolm loves to blow stuff
There is
up,
that.
and I feel like
And
mining
Travis
involves
has
blowing things up.
experience again on a cargo ship, so maybe he has some mining experience. That would be logical.
Yeah, I bet you're right. I bet he knows about
do you
mining. from
suppose
his
in the
cargo
mess
background.
hall on the refrigerator they have one of those big circular things that says what everybody's duties is this week? So this week, T'Pol is on dishes, Archer's on floors,
Right.
and Malcolm and Travis
Or
are on
away
away missions.
Who is on bakery assignment to bake all the pecan pies?
Oh, it's got to be Phlox. He's back there. He's got the big chef's hat on.
Yeah, but you don't know what he's putting in those pies. I would not eat that pie.
I would not eat anything that Phlox
Absolutely
would
not.
Right. Where's the slug? Oh, no. So before they can leave, though, a Vulcan ship shows up. The Vulcan ship, I heard Tumor is the name of it. That can't be right. Captain's name is Vanek. Archer invites them to join their little comet expedition, but Vanek doesn't give a fuck about a comet.
Not even if it has mystery element on it?
Apparently not.
Oh, MacGuffin.
But he is interested in their interest in the comet, which is obvious by the way he doesn't ask any questions about what they're doing or why. And this makes Archer grumpy, because I guess Vulcans keep showing up on all their missions.
Well,
Which
yeah.
may not have actually happened on the previous episodes,
he has
but
a
apparently
huge
it
chip
does
on
now.
his shoulder about Vulcans.
Yeah.
I don't think Vulcans have showed up on any of their missions, except the last one where Vulcans did not show up. They went to the Vulcan planet where they were not wanted.
No, the Vulcans are the helicopter parents. They're always a light year behind them, just checking in on them constantly.
Yeah, it doesn't count if you actually go to Vulcan and then bitch about Vulcans being all over the place. Yeah, so he's all pissy, grumps at T'Pol, and she just sort of stares at him, kind of a shrug, and okay, well, I mean, what would you like me to do about
Vulcan's
it?
gonna Vulcan.
Yeah.
So the Vulcans are just kind of hanging out, watching them explore this comet. That's annoying.
That's real annoying. They have clipboards.
That is annoying. They're like looking over their shoulder. They're like, no, we're not
Anytime
interested
the
in
humans
any
do
of
anything,
this.
the Vulcans, even though they don't have emotions, go ooh.
Oh, this is going to be great on YouTube.
Okay, if this is actually happening, I'm on Archer's.
They pull out their cell phone cameras. Hang on, I gotta record this.
And about this point, Malcolm and Travis take the shuttle pod to the comet and land, which should be trickier than it was because a comet this size would have no noticeable gravity.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you could put yourself in orbit around it by walking on it too fast. But everything on the comet is all an Armageddon ripoff, basically. You know, the gravity is Earth normal.
Of course it
Sure.
is.
And did it rain? Every time it rains on a comet, Phil Plate cries.
Did it kind of look like a national park within driving distance of downtown Los Angeles?
I was just about to
Well,
ask
this was
that.
clearly inside a
Are we in the
this was
Sierra
clearly
Nevada?
inside a studio.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh.
They didn't have to travel anywhere. They just turned the lights dimmer and put up some, styrofoam, I guess.
How great is it going to be if in a future episode we see them when they're exploring an alien planet and we see another part of the crew filming a different episode in the background?
Yeah, I was really hoping they brought everybody to a ski trip to Mammoth to
We finally
film the
introduced
scene.
the second plot line through all this. This is a second plot that is really completely disconnected from the comet thing. Back on Enterprise, Trip is going through the logs of everybody else's business except his own.
Why?
I don't know, he's just looking through logs. He's an engineer.
That's not anywhere near his job. I can
Well-
understand Malcolm doing that.
Well, he's looking through message logs, so I don't know why Hoshi isn't involved in all this.
That's a good point. All right,
I mean, she's about to be, because while he's doing this, he realizes he hasn't made life difficult for T'Pol nearly enough this episode, and he finds the message she got in the cold open.
Oh.
And then he gives it to Hoshi, who looks at the email header, and says it came from Vulcan to T'Pol, but it's encrypted, so she can't read it.
Wait, so Trip is just going through a bunch of messages for the fun of it, comes across a message, he has no idea what it is, but because it's to T'Pol, he's like, I gotta go get this
It's
translated.
suspicious because it's coming straight from Vulcan and not going through regular Starfleet channels to get to this Starfleet vessel.
She could have family.
Also,
I-
she's not part of Starfleet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it makes sense that they would want to contact her without it going through
If she wants to
Starfleet.
have a VPN, she can have a VPN to Vulcan. It's her prerogative.
Okay, this just reinforces my idea that this is actually about the beginning of the mirror universe, that the engineer spends his time going through everybody's personal transmissions.
Yeah, meanwhile, Hoshi is checking the oil in the engine.
Is he looking for a lost child's drawing? Is that what he's just scanning through the ship's logs?
He doesn't say, he just says he was flipping through them and ends up
Yes,
the
he
whole...
do.
And I just realized that in my notes, I misspelled Vulcan as Volvan with two C's. That's what they're called in the porn version of Star Trek, I guess. So he takes this encrypted message and realizes that this is a golden opportunity to not only keep harassing T'Pol, but to actually deny her some civil rights and her privacy.
Yeah, maybe the reason she's encrypting her messages is because Trip keeps going through
he
them.
goes off and has a conspiracy session with Archer, and they agree to make Hoshi decrypt it. Apparently, Paul had promised Archer that she would tell him of any messages she got directly from Vulcan or from Vulcan channels, and she did not. Although I'm not sure of the time range here. And I know Maria.
Since when is Hoshi a cryptologist?
No, Maria, you're really into Scott Bakula, but man,
I know.
Sam Beckett wouldn't have done this.
No, Archer, the character, I love Scott Bakula, but I think a big part of why I stopped watching this show, because I love Scott Bakula, you guys, but he's so angry in every episode, and he makes bad, dumb choices in every episode, I did have a quick aside about Hoshi, which I agree with you, we have no evidence that she's a cryptologist, but maybe languages and cryptology, and I don't know, she's bad at figuring that out too.
Here's my thing. Here's my Shawson. Is this her new answer to every time somebody asks her to translate
no, it's
stuff?
encrypted.
Oh shit, we got the Klingons on the... I'm sorry, it's encrypted.
Completely encrypted, not my gig. Can't do it.
Yeah, actually,
Check it
Trip might be
out.
better at decrypting this stuff.
Yeah, it should be Trip.
Presumably, once he decrypts it, it's in Vulcan, and she could read it to him.
Well, maybe, but she's the comms officer.
Also, if it was in Vulcan and not decrypted from the beginning, presumably they have some sort of translation device. Like we have that today. What like you can just copy
Google
paste
Translate.
it into like Google Translate.
Well, we didn't have that in 2001. I mean, the universal. I mean, one of the things they were consciously trying to get away from was the idea of the universe. We can talk to any alien. We don't have to explain this away.
Yeah, but
In universe, Hoshi speaks like 86 languages and is the first human to understand
Does she, though?
Klingonese.
Not demonstrated.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like people are
citation
flying up
needed.
and speaking Italian
I
to
have-
her, though.
I have heard her speak English. I have heard her whistle in front of a class, and I have seen her scream shit at a box.
No, she talked to Paul and Vulcan that one time where she
That was
had to
true.
give
Okay,
her a
yes.
message, and
While
but-
T'Pol was blasted out of her
yeah,
mind.
while Paul was freaked out and being beaten by Trip, pretty much.
Yeah.
Anyway, my point is, we were talking about Hoshi. I just wanted to tie this back to a previous conversation, but one of the questions that you have had ongoing is, in this world, is this a military, is Starfleet military or what?
Right.
And I think it is. And one of the things you were saying is like, because if so, what the hell is Hoshi? Like, she's not, if she is Starfleet, she had to have gone through some amount of training, and it doesn't seem like she's done that. Well, we were a big, giant fan of ours, Stephen, was listening to us talking about that, and he said that he does think they're military, and Hoshi is a civilian contractor, which makes sense to me. Like, she's the equivalent of a civilian contractor, as is Phlox, apparently. And apparently the Phlox thing, like, they actually said something to that effect in the early episodes.
I can understand that with Phlox, but
Yeah,
with
she
Hoshi,
wears the
doesn't she
uniform
have
and she has
pets?
the...
So maybe,
the
but
pip,
maybe
so-
that's like, you get
I think-
to some level, I don't know.
I don't know.
No, as somebody who was a civilian
get
in the
that.
military,
Yeah, that's a
you
good point.
you do
I
not
did
get a
actually
rank.
look her up on Memory Alpha, the Star Trek Wikipedia. And she actually was in the military. She got in trouble for, and I wish I could have seen this, punching her.
Falsifying documents
no.
at her university.
No, she beat the crap out of a superior officer for some reason. It's
Oh,
very
surely
vague
we
on
see
that.
that. Surely we see that. That's got to be a Hoshi episode in the future.
I hope
like,
so.
We've got to be seeing that. There's no doubt.
So yeah, she got in trouble, but apparently they got over all that. And she left the military, but then I guess got reinstated because she was a teacher in Brazil in
We saw that.
Broken Bow when we found her, or when Archer went and got her.
Yeah, so she's not a contractor. She is a
Okay.
member of Starfleet.
Okay.
Yeah,
She has
so
a rank.
she got
Good to know.
Yeah.
reinstated.
But
I
you
guess.
can, I think I mentioned this last time, you can be in a military organization, but not have a job where you're fighting. You can be like a language teacher.
Exactly.
in
And I
the
think
military.
she's only in the military because she had been in the military, and it probably just made more sense to reactivate her.
Right.
And I guess they were letting, Captain Nepo Baby just pick who he wanted for the crew.
Right.
And it's like, okay, she's got a record, but okay, whatever.
If she's been out of service for a while, it makes sense that
Yeah.
she's not as
How
well trained.
amazing would it have been if instead of seeing Hoshi teaching her class on a beautiful island, if Archer had to go to the Starfleet prison camp where she's
Oh, right.
killing a boar with her bare hands? Like, I'll come on your mission to translate.
She's inside a cell and still chained to the wall. She's got a piece of human flesh hanging from her teeth.
She's got the
She's got the
Hannibal
Hannibal
Lecter.
Lecter mask on. Yeah.
Spits it out, yells at him in Klingon, and he goes, "You're perfect."
hired. Okay, sorry. Didn't mean to go off on that tangent.
No, that's okay.
That's what we do here.
Yeah, no, once it's decrypted somehow, turns out it's a personal letter. And Trip actually feels guilty and wants to confess to T'Pol. So
wow.
that one was true.
All right.
She is Vulcan mad about the whole thing, so she just...
Yeah, that's what I said in the beginning. Maybe she just
a
has
letter.
family.
But they don't tell
She
you what the
stares-
letter said. He doesn't read the letter.
We get into that almost right away.
Oh, okay, good.
But you can tell she's mad because she stares blankly at him and is then kind of sarcastic. I have other letters in my quarters if you would like them.
Trip.
You mean the way she looks
Yeah.
at Trip every
Yeah,
time
but
she sees Trip?
she does deliver with the sarcasm.
So please tell me Trip
Yeah.
goes up to her and
Oh,
says,
yeah.
I'm sorry I read this letter, but this asshole coworker you keep talking about, please let me know if there's anything I can do.
The letter, as it turns out, is from her fiance.
Aww.
Gasp.
Oh,
We didn't know. I guess we didn't know that she had one of those.
We did not.
no.
I should
Wait,
have
what
written
is
his
his
name.
Oh,
name?
they don't say.
I
Yeah,
thought maybe you said it.
Vulcan
Okay.
marriages, as we learned way back in the 60s, are arranged when you're children. So she hadn't actually spoken to him in many years. But he is annoyed that she had to postpone their planned wedding because she is on Enterprise.
Oh, this makes sense why this whole time I'm like, why is she there? Why did she choose to be on this ship?
She's
And
Oh,
she's
yeah,
running
no,
away from
that's
a
fine.
marriage. Like he's like, this is bad. It is not as bad as being married
How
to somebody I
awful
don't want
must
to be
this
married
fiance
to.
be? Because she's like, I'm going to put up with these frat boy assholes for months
Like,
rather than go.
Thank Christ, I am not going to be married to this loser. And, of course, she's explaining all this to Trip. Phlox had actually recommended she talk it out with somebody. And she has a great scene where she explains in no uncertain terms that Trip was not her first choice, but he was the only one who knew what her letter had said. Hoshi had decrypted it, but not actually read it. So I guess she ran it through the software and then didn't look at the screen.
But wait, if it was in Vulcan, she would have had to have translated it because Trip doesn't speak. Okay.
Maybe it's in the
Never asked,
universal
never-
translator.
Isn't that why Trip brought it to
he might
her
have-
because he needed it translated to begin with, right? Because they don't
But
have
they
Google
a universal
Translate yet.
translator that should work.
Yeah,
I know,
that's what I was
I know,
saying.
you're
But
right.
then
None of it
clearly
makes
they
any sense.
don't because he
right.
brought it to
of it
Hoshi to
makes
be
sense.
Well, he brought it to
translated.
Hoshi to be
Hoshi-
decrypted, and then maybe the universal translator took the decrypted Vulcan and put it into
Okay.
redneck English for
Hoshi just made it up. Hoshi just wrote her own.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is. That's right. That's right. Because she has no idea what she's doing. That's right.
It says it's a special gift to a boy on his first confirmation. I don't know.
anyway, Mr. Future to Ball, whatever his name is, and she did say it once, but it never got
cares?
referred to again. Sick of her being with Starfleet and not with him, and wants her to come home. And Trip's advice is exactly as useful as you would expect. Like, well, go get married, then bring him back here. She's like, he is an architect. Okay. And then, let's see, there's a scene where Vanek, the captain of the Vulcan ship, comes over to dinner and is a huge dick the entire time. And Archer, you can tell, is just struggling to not just grab his knife and come over the table at him. But he does not.
All right.
Good. They're learning.
So Vanek came
Yeah,
to the Enterprise
comes over for dinner.
Oh, great
What did
question.
they serve him?
T'Pol recommended some Vulcan
Okay, good. Good.
food, or told the chef how to make it, or put
It was a whole pecan pie.
right, put some ketchup on top of pecan pie or whatever the hell. And then the rest of the episode is basically a long action sequence.
Okay.
You know, Vanek is a dick, says humans aren't very interesting to him. They're just loud and arrogant. And then Archer's like, well, I'll let you get back to your ship then. And he goes back to his ship. So on the Comet, Malcolm and Mayweather set off explosives to get to the MacGuffinite, which shifts the rotation of the Comet nucleus a bit and is going to expose the spot where they're standing to direct sunlight earlier than they expected to, which I guess is bad.
Great.
These guys
Great
are
work,
so bad at their jobs, guys. They're so bad at their jobs.
And
But
yeah.
Trip is an
blows something
engineer.
up.
He should have been doing all of these calculations instead of fucking around reading to Paul's emails.
Another question. Do you suppose that the screenwriter forgot which character had which name, and the engineer got switched with the security
He has the same problem we do.
expert?
All the white guys look the same. We just throw one
Just
of
like-
one of the white guys at this and throw another white guy
T-names,
at that.
like, okay, who's going to the Comet? Oh, right, the black guy and the Brit. Okay. Of course, they don't have time with this new rotation to get the MacGuffinite and build a snowman.
Aww.
They built
So they build the
They
snowman.
built a huge snowman almost as tall as Mayweather himself. Put a little face on it. They get nagged at by Archer, who's
Wait.
watching them from Enterprise.
Wait, I thought it was gonna like turn
Well,
them
they
into
did
the
that
sun.
first. They did the snowman first, and then they got to work.
Oh, jackasses.
Yeah. So, yeah, Travis built the snowman. Malcolm got a drill or something and put on eyes and a mouth and then stuck some piece of equipment in as a nose.
They're
and Archer
so
like
bad
calls
at
him up and is like, how's it going down there? Remember, we got Vulcans watching. And to Malcolm's credit... To Malcolm's credit, they don't take the snowman apart. They put pointy ears on it. But they got to rush to get to the pod because the sun is there and the direct light from the sun is causing all the ice to break apart. So
And melting the
snowman, I guess. Mayweather falls and breaks a leg, which wouldn't have happened if they'd realized there wasn't any gravity. And just while I'm thinking about it, while they're rushing across the surface to get to the pod, they could have just beamed them up then, right? Because there's no ice above them.
Well, they're still like not
And if the
comfortable
comet's
using
moving
the
and there's
transporters on
physics
human.
involved and they can't even figure out that an explosion is going to turn the path of the comet, maybe they don't trust.
Maybe so.
They don't trust their math.
And shuttle pods are expensive, and you can always get another guy who steers. So obviously the shuttle pod falls through the melting ice and gets stuck in a crevasse that is, they're wedged in there so much that even the grapplers can't help. We get a grappler sighting.
Okay, at that point, just use the transporter. Like they did it.
Yeah.
They did it last week.
Like, so far, everybody's been fine. It's okay.
I have to imagine that being stuck in the ice with a vehicle trip is just on comms going, gun it! Gun it! Gun it!
But I think the central message of the episode happens because Archer is forced to stop being an arrogant butthole and become a humble butthole and call the Vulcans and ask them to help because they have a tractor beam that can pull the pod up, which they do, pull it up, and the pod is fine, so they go on back to the ship and everything's fine.
But they never get the MacGuffinite.
No, they brought it with them on board, so
they
they got a
bring
whole
them.
thing of a whole tube of MacGuffinite. Not that the Vulcans give a shit about the MacGuffinite at this point.
It's interesting so far because this episode has like no bad guys. I don't think
I
we've
didn't
had an
think I-
episode. I mean,
I'm not
maybe
sure
the
it has
Vulcans
any
will
good
turn out to be
guys.
bad guys, but
Well, yeah, that's fair point.
Yeah, he just has a bunch of jerks.
It has a lot of guys.
Yeah.
You got
Guys
jerks
being
and
guys.
morons.
all the conflicts that's happened have been like they've created.
So,
it
and then
themselves.
the kind of denouement, I guess. The Vulcan ship is about to leave. Trip tells T'Pol to hurry and finish packing. But T'Pol instead asks Archer for permission to send them a message that they can carry back to Vulcan. Because, and I don't want to spoil much here, she's staying.
Oh, I see. So the message from the fiance was coordinated.
Get your ass back
with
home.
It was coordinated with the Vulcans showing up.
Well, the message arrived before the Vulcan ship, so I don't know.
Oh, so it was more of a situation of like,
She could have just hitched a ride back to Vulcan.
Get home on the first chance you get, and why would she
Yeah.
even consider agreeing to that? Like,
Right.
is there actual tension that could happen?
No.
Would the fiance have known that she was going to be near a Vulcan ship? Like, she could just not tell the fiance. But I love that her choice is,
Yeah, he
no,
needs
I
to
want
know
him
that I
to
had the
know that I
chance.
had the choice, that I had a chance. I could have gone back, and I decided not to. I love that.
Here's
I love
my
her.
alternate ending for the episode is that all the Vulcans are about to beam off and T'Pol is there on the transport platform with them, but she's wearing a ball cap and sunglasses, and at the last minute Archer pulls it off and it's Hoshi.
But so the encrypted message was basically "get your ass home," and Paul's response was "get bent,
Get your ass to Vulcan.
get to the tumor." And finally, this comes to an end. The very last scene is T'Pol sitting in her room alone, reading something. I hope it's Archer's email. And we close on a piece of pecan pie sitting next to her. And this terrifies me into thinking we are in the early stages of a relationship between Trip and T'Pol.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's felt like they're setting up for a
Is there
relationship.
a single
between
bite
those
missing
two.
from the pecan
Not
pie?
yet. It's still.
Oh.
So maybe that is a slim lifeline that he gave it to her.
Oh.
She just took it to avoid having to talk to him and then just put it on her desk and then toss it later.
Yeah, maybe she's like, it's pecan pie week on the Enterprise. I want my pecan pie, but I don't want it from
It wasn't
Trip.
spite, Jamie. It was a kindness. It was like, he is eating 2 pies a day. I am taking this out of the equation.
Ever since they had the decontamination scene, it has felt like they are gearing up for a relationship between those two, and it makes
We didn't
me
get a
very
decon
uncomfortable.
scene with Malcolm and Mayweather.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah, we haven't had a decontamination scene since the first episode, and then for like a while, for a couple scenes, they would like comment on
Yeah,
it.
you
Be
don't
like,
need
"Oh,
to do
they're
it."
clean," and now they don't even do that anymore.
I will say that as whatever problems I've had with the writing and characterization of the show thus far, I do enjoy seeing those two actors together.
Trip and T'Pol.
Yeah, Trip and T'Pol. Like,
Yeah, I agree. I
they
think that
play
they're
off
both
each
really
other very
fun.
well.
Agreed. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're done with the episode?
Yeah. So we're left trying to ship Tripal.
Tripal. Okay, so Christian, what was your overall thoughts about this episode?
Oh man, I felt that the only thing I think from this episode that may stick with us going forward is the Trip to Paul relationship. I wouldn't even call it a beginning, but another hint along the way. I think otherwise it could be just completely lifted out. The science was bad. The action was bad. And, the characters were the characters. They at least seemed to stay in character the whole time. Except Archer did seem more angry than usual.
Yeah, I mean, that is within context though. Like Archer being randomly angry seems that's been the case. It's weird. I think we're just so used to a, level-headed, the captain even Kirk having some amount of rationality and level-headedness.
A basic sense of logic and cause and effect.
Even a tiny amount of diplomacy in him. But it sounds like he did well on the diplomacy front this time.
Yeah. Eventually, he did bite his tongue when he was ready to just stick a knife in that Vulcan's neck.
Well, and I mean, to be fair, every time he gets that anger is always directed towards the Vulcan. He clearly has a big issue with the Vulcans, and we know why because of his dad and all of that stuff. But
there was the one time he yelled at Trip. The
murder room
the
episode?
murder episode when but that was just he was so mad about yelling at T'Pol that then it just spilled over into yelling.
Archer was actually angry.
Very much so. Very much so.
Couldn't hold the mirror up.
Oh man, if I were him, I would slap the crap out of Malcolm and Mayweather for the snowman thing and causing him to,
have to lose face like that.
Have to beg the Vulcans.
This sounds like it might be the most Travis we've ever
it didn't
watched.
end up well for him.
It's all right. It's better than that couple episodes ago where he was so excited about this and knew all the history about that Terra Nova place and then just got to write the report at the end and really had nothing else to do.
Yeah, they got there and they're like, "Hey, just stay outside, just guard the entrance to the cave," even though it didn't really need guarding. And then at the end, he got to write the report.
I haven't seen the last couple of episodes before this one. I watched the first few, and I don't understand. Well, I have some, I guess, not kind suspicions, but why the production and the writing staff seems to dislike T'Pol as much as they do. If they didn't like the character, they could have just not had her.
That's a great question.
Great question.
I just feel like the more I think about it, the more she feels like they're writing kind of a stereotypical ice queen. Was kind of how they wanted it. And if they are setting her up with Trip, it's let's position these two as absolute polar opposites so that it's all the more romantic when they get together. Blech.
Yeah, I understand the opposites attract, but Trip is just so rude towards her entire
they have
culture
fundamental disagreements
and her religion, and was actively being racist.
It's you can be with somebody, but you have to at least agree on politics and religion, and there's a couple of things that are kind of fundamental, or at least be accepting of them. And none of those things are true with these two.
The idea that I've come to is, as we've talked about before, A, they're making this up as there's no show Bible. They're just making this up as they go along. And B, their default decision seems to be, let's do the opposite of what Star Trek has done before. Oh, Vulcans and humans get along. Now they don't. Humans are in charge. No, now the Vulcans are in charge. Humans, the Universal Translator works fine. Now
All
it doesn't.
of which could be so interesting and so well done.
Yeah.
But the choices they make.
There's no plan here.
I think it would be fun to have a Star Trek on like one of like the lesser ships where like all the people on it are actually not that competent. I mean, I guess in a way that's kind of what Lower Decks is. Kind of. But the people on the ship are so incompetent.
Jarring.
I mean, can you just imagine, like, you were working on this, like, very important spaceship. You've been sent down to this comet to go, like, dig
Very
up
important MacGuffinite.
some element or something. Right. And you get down there and, like, you're like, let's just, like, build a snowman. And you're just, like, fucking around? Is it a doing your job?
I think it goes back to like I think maybe this was on one of your episodes, Jamie, where you were talking about how Hoshi was like the second best in her class, and I feel like that is like everybody on this is like the second best of everything. This is not.
Yeah, this is not Starfleet's
This is like they are all
A-team.
they were all hard C plus B minus students.
Yeah, this is not. Starfleet did not send
so
their
weird.
best on the
Well,
Enterprise.
this just occurred to me. This is the beginning of Starfleet. So when she says she's the second best, she may not be the second best in Starfleet Academy,
point.
which may or may not exist. She might just be the second best of whatever university she went to.
Ridgemont High.
Exactly.
I learned something. I think it was just today. I was looking something up and getting my notes in order for this. It turns out that for some reason, Brannon Braga, who was among the showrunners for this, decided that to mix things up, the writing team would be all people who hadn't worked on Star Trek before.
So interesting.
And then every single one of, well, there was one left. Everybody but one either, left the show either during the season or after season one was over. So, like, that made a lot of things click into place. Some of my fundamental issues with it.
That all makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it looks like Star Trek, but it doesn't feel like Star Trek.
I mean, there are
That's
parts
so
of it where,
interesting.
to me, it is obvious they were cribbing from the original series.
Yeah, like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that the writers of this were fans of Star Trek going in, probably.
Yeah.
But that's different from, like, having people who, like, understand the culture of the writer's room.
I think they
on a Star
didn't
Trek
know
show.
why the original series was as beloved as it was. And because the things that really attracted me to it when I was young, first of all, it was in space, and I was a nerd, so
Sure.
didn't have a lot of options then. But the original series was powered in large part by the relationships between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. We don't have that here.
Sure.
Well, they're
Right.
trying, but they're failing. Like, I think that's what they're trying to do, is to set up these sort of conflicts, but they're not really doing a good job of setting up the alliances. So, like, like Kirk and Spock are like, bros, really. Like, they got each other's backs even if they disagree.
I mean, Archer
Yeah,
and
that's
Trip
true.
feel
Archer
like
and Trip do
bros.
feel-
Like, but in like a
Yeah, in a
gross
good old
way,
boys
where they're,
way.
like,
Right.
bros
Yeah, they're frat
against
brothers.
someone else. Yeah, like a good old boys way. Like, not in like a positive, like, we've got each other's backs. More like, hey, when you think the girl's being a
roll
bitch, you
your
can
eyes.
come
Yeah.
and complain
Yeah,
to me
agreed.
about
Agreed.
her. And, like, I will agree with you that she's
which is a much
bitch.
different dynamic from, Kirk and Spock and McCoy, who were tight in their own way from the get-go. I mean, Spock and McCoy would butt heads some, but Kirk kind of mediated between them, and it's just because they were two very different people. But, in the best parts of that show, you could see that they genuinely liked each other.
So I have not seen much original series, but my husband was saying that he has felt like he believes they're trying to recreate a Kirk
They
Spock
are.
McCoy relationship with Archer,
T'Pol.
Trip, and T'Pol. And like, I have not seen very much original series, but it certainly feels to me like whatever they're doing doesn't
it
feel
feels
like it's
that's
working.
exactly what they're doing with those three. I mean, they even have kind of the accents right, almost. But like, but they also went, and how interesting, quote unquote, interesting would it be if McCoy and Spock fell in love? Like, that's what they're basically saying.
And they're like, therefore we have to make one
If
of
we
them a
made the
lady.
Vulcan a lady, what would that be like, right?
Right. And it's like, well, it certainly worked on Voyager.
Like 2001, we're still not
Yeah,
ready
exactly.
for a gay relationship on this show. It feels like they don't understand that like you can't just take a character and turn like personality of a male character to like just make that character a woman and have it feel the same, because there are different stereotypes. Like what is like a fun, like a maybe like a grumpy kind of standoffish kind of rude guy, when you put it in a woman, suddenly it's ice queen.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
And like when other people are complaining about, instead of just like them complaining and it sounding like friendly ribbing, it just having two white guys complaining about the woman who's smarter than them and telling them what to do, it just comes off so badly.
How much better, this is just me, how much better would it be, without changing the show a lot, if instead of being openly antagonistic to T'Pol, Archer just stood there and just like looked at her and just said, and she went on, she said something about violent humans and stuff, she goes, I like you. Thank you for that suggestion.
Okay, moving on. Porthos good boy scale. Sounds like there was no Porthos in this
No
episode.
Porthos at all.
This is starting to worry me. We haven't seen Porthos in several episodes, and I think they might.
He
this
walked
is
out for
third in
higher
a row.
pay.
Yeah.
No Porthos.
That's true.
They showed him the script, and he's nope.
Not doing that one.
I'll be in my
Peed
trailer.
on that one.
I mean, I know like they didn't have social media then, so it would have taken a while for like fans' thoughts to like get to the writers. So I'm really hoping that like by season 2, they've been like, oh, literally the only good part of the show is Porthos. He's the only character everybody likes, so we should just like remake the show around Porthos.
I bet they didn't know. They put Porthos in there and then realized they didn't know what to do with him.
I know, but just having him in a background would be nice, but of course that's really hard to do, like logistically, just having an animal on set is a big deal.
And if Archer's going to spend all of his time angry, having him angry while cuddling a medium-sized dog.
I would like it more. It would do much better.
I can't believe the fucking Vulcans. All right, Scott, now do that without ripping the dog's hair out.
Do other people have pets on this ship, you suppose? I have to assume not. I have to assume this is a captain's.
Well, there was
privilege thing.
Sluggo.
There was Sluggo. I was specifically thinking if they had like a little dog park somewhere that they could run around. But I suppose Porthos and a slug would be kind of depressing.
Oh my god. That would be amazing if like there's like a dog time of day when all the dogs get to go to the dog park and Porthos gets to like run around with the other dog.
It would be so good.
They never had any real regulations, they told us, about pets on these ships. I mean, nobody batted an eye when Uhura brought a Tribble on board. At least not at first.
True.
And, of course, Data had a cat.
Data had a cat.
Picard had fish, or at least up until the original Enterprise D crashed. And then I imagine those fish got screwed there.
Yes, it didn't end well for the fish.
No, we saw that the cat was okay, but the fish...
cat makes it, but the fish
no
not
more
so
references to the fish.
We never heard from again. Okay, so next on the list is the saucy scale. How sexy was this episode on a scale of Data saying he is fully functional to that time that Tom Paris and Janeway de-evolved into lizards and mated?
Oh, wow.
Okay, again, which is the high and which is the low here, Maria?
Come on, Data saying I am fully functional? You have to admit it was hot.
I found out, I'm not on social media anymore, but I post occasionally to our Blue Sky feed, and I found out that some people still, quote-unquote, celebrate Ascension Day.
Yeah, it just happened. No,
Yes, it did.
not Ascension Day. First Contact Day, right?
No. Ascension Day, the day when Tom Paris achieved Warp 10, and he and Janeway transformed into slugs.
That's a thing that actually happened, Jamie, on Voyager. It's a literal thing that happened.
Great show.
Okay. When this podcast
We can
has
go
gone
to-
on
we
for
can
4
go to
years,
Voyager.
we're still
Yeah,
doing
no.
it.
Voyager
Maybe we can
is
do Voyager
next
next.
level bonkers.
It's so bonkers, but
steal it,
better. But such a better show.
There are a couple of episodes of Voyager that are outstanding.
Agree. Okay, so really nothing sexy in this episode sounds like.
Well, the pecan pie as a sort of
right.
aphrodisiac,
Right.
maybe. I mean, it's not so much sexy in itself,
But
but,
it's
as the
kind of
promise.
It's like the slow burn before
it's a little bit of a
relationship
stereotype, but it's also kind of cute that the Southern boy is offering pecan pie as his love language, you know? It makes a lot of sense.
You ever had pig's knuckles?
We've established she's vegetarian, so hopefully she's not gonna make that mistake.
Syntho pig knuckles.
No, the sexiest thing in here might have been my typo of Volvins.
I think that's the pick. Oh my god, are we going to have an episode where they discover synthetic alcohol and Trip just loses his goddamn mind?
Yeah, I would think that has to happen, surely.
Like, we've already seen him high.
But doesn't synthetic alcohol exist already?
Synthahol is, no, I don't know. Well, I mean, we have like, you mean for us, like near beer?
No, I mean for them, in universe. Maybe not.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think it's coming. But synthahol is what they drink. Synthahol is what you drink when you want the flavor of single malt whiskey, but you don't want to get drunk.
Oh, so I'm always confused about that. I wasn't sure if synthahol actually had
I thought
alcohol in it or
synthahol
not.
got you drunk, but you could very quickly recover.
That's an interesting. We're gonna have to look.
That
this
was
up and
always
come
my
back.
impression. Was like there's a quick way to recover from synthahol.
Yeah, I don't think it showed up
interesting.
until the next generation.
I think that's right.
Yeah, so on Next Generation, I swear there was a scene where they mentioned that it's like, you can drink all the alcohol you want and you don't get drunk. But then there's definitely other times when people are drinking synthol and definitely seem drunk. And I've been really confused.
No, this
and I don't
synthahol
understand.
really messes with my system. No, you can't have it. Get your own.
I just assumed that they would do that, and then there was some button you could push that cleared it from your system or something.
See, Maria, you think that when you're regular drunk, too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And
I'm good. Let me push my button.
It works for me, though. Look, guys, I'm sober.
I know. The listeners can't see this, but as Maria is saying this, she's like pretending like she's pressing a button on the side of her forehead and then on her nose. The button keeps moving.
I can't remember where it is exactly.
Oh,
okay.
boy.
How about never ask, never answer? You got any? It sounds like there were a few of those in this.
So, did they ever say what they wanted, like this material, this unobtainium, whatever it was? They just wanted it.
Yeah, I mean, we have no idea what properties it had, why the Vulcans would even study it.
Okay. Fair enough.
By the time they got any back to the ship, the Vulcans weren't interested in it.
Like, I don't.
Yeah,
I
it's
still don't get why the
unclear.
Vulcans were
Apparently, they have been just shadowing the Enterprise for a while.
Oh, and they were like it's a check-in.
Yeah, storytelling wise, maybe they have been doing this, but they just decided to invent it in this episode and sort of back. You never saw this, but
But it's a regular checkpoint
they
with
retconned
the
the Vulcans.
It'd be really funny if in the episode when they were like getting attacked by the spider ship
Vulcans were
and about
just
to like all be blown up and die, if the Vulcans were just out of range watching and like, well, should we step in?
They said they didn't want us to.
Like, I don't know. I kind of wanted to go home. We might get this
Sir, the
mission
Enterprise is
cut
hailing us,
short.
Sir.
Give me a second.
Yeah, as far as I know, it was just, hey, let's look at this comet. And the Vulcans show up and like, oh, why do you want to look at this comet? But it's got this stuff in it. I don't care what's in the comet. It's a comet. It's got a tail, goes around the sun.
I do like an episode where everyone's just working. There's not just like, oh, they came across something weird. It's just like, this is our normal work day.
It was odd how excited they got about seeing a comet.
Oh, this crew is very excitable. They're very tired of the fact that space is big and empty.
They're so bored. They're so bored.
I wonder if Trip found whatever he was looking for in those logs. If he actually had a reason.
He was the equivalent of doom scrolling through people's text messages.
Yeah, they're too far out for social media.
I know what was happening. He had a problem in engineering and he couldn't find it out, so he was just like Googling answers, and it's just like these Usenet posts of like somebody asked this 20 years ago.
What's like a reboot? No.
None of that's gonna work. Okay, technical difficulties. The most technobabble thing of this episode. Was there anything?
Well, I mean, I don't understand if they really did get these pictures from Trip's nephew's 4th grade class. how that happened. I like the idea that Trip drew him himself and was like, look what my nephew sent.
Trip was drawing in his big red sketchbook there, and Phlox walked in. He's, these came from some children.
But the rest of it was fairly basic stuff. I mean, you got to see the grapplers in action.
Go fun.
You know, I think this might be the first time they had seen a tractor beam. At least they acted like it was. So, hey, that tractor beam, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we've seen the grapplers before, but that tractor beam is new technology that they don't have yet.
Yeah, but they weren't messing around much on the engines or anything. So no graviton particles anywhere around. Nothing like that.
When they went to the comet, I assume they had the environmental suits on, the like big bulky gold things.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That would have been too much of a giveaway if they're just
walking
around in their work clothes.
Yeah. They're like, we don't have the budget to do no air, but at least we can, to do no gravity,
no
but
air.
at least we can at least
Or if
pretend
they
like
just
there's
had
no
like
air.
face masks on or something like that.
Well, any other thoughts on this episode?
I really hate the way the Vulcans are depicted in this show so far. The whole thing about Vulcans are not very curious is sort of flying in the teeth of everything we learned about Vulcans through all of Star Trek leading up.
Yeah, that line threw me off. When they're like, Vulcans don't have curiosity.
The Vulcans we've gotten to know,
what?
Spock and all the others, are just basically the scientific method made flesh. And you've got to be curious.
If they weren't curious, why would they have made first contact? Like, why would they not just stay where they are and not ever talk to anybody ever?
It wasn't a first contact. They were pulling them over for violating the speed limit. They were doing a DUI on Zephram Cochrane.
Yeah.
I like to think that this Vulcans are not curious thing is just something that T'Pol made up to like. I just think she's like constantly making
I don't want to
shit
talk to
up
these
to
people.
Well,
Maybe
that makes
if
sense.
they think I'm not curious about stuff, they won't ask me.
Yeah. No, in my culture, we don't examine things in great detail.
In my culture, we don't talk during meals.
Yeah, in my culture, nobody talks to me.
Right. We don't watch movies together on Vulcan.
She starts making up Vulcan holidays. So she's...
Yeah, she's like, this is the Vulcan holiday where I need 30 days of isolation.
No, nobody is allowed to come in. Just send pecan pie through the hole of the door.
And we take a blonde Terran human and seal him in a box.
Is a sacrifice to the Vulcan god.
Seems terribly specific for a 200-year-old holiday.
Do not mock my culture.
Right. I think one of the reasons this show didn't work, when this show came on, we hadn't had any Star Trek at all. Voyager had ended several months before, and then this showed up.
Oh, I didn't realize
there
didn't
was
overlap
like a
with
blank
Voyager.
spot of maybe, I think Voyager ended in May, and then this came out in September.
So there was no Star Trek between those times, because Deep Space Nine was over at that point too, right?
Deep Space Nine was over, but Broken Bow came out 15 days after 9/11. And I think people were hoping for something else after everything with 9/11, which is, of course, still going on. It was only 2 weeks later.
Hell,
Yeah, which not
at
the
all.
fault
Yeah, no,
of
not
the people making
I do
this
think-
show.
interesting though.
But
timing, though.
I can see that timing wise, this show where everyone is fighting
Right.
is like
because the
not
beauty and
what
the
people would be
appeal
looking
of Star
for.
Trek for so long is like, this is our future, and our future is everybody gets along.
Right, that was Gene Roddenberry's thing.
And God, did we ever need that message 15 days after 9/11? So everybody tunes in like, okay, here we go, Star
Yeah.
Trek, message of hope.
Yeah.
And then
And
everybody's shit.
And we'd spent months anticipating it.
Yeah, like everybody probably wants like comfort
Yeah.
comfort
Right.
TV. And this
But
show
it was
does
all
not feel like
filmed
comfort TV.
Of course.
beforehand. They couldn't have changed
They
anything if
could
they wanted
never
to.
have known. Of course.
All they could have done was delay it a couple of years until people kind of, moved on past 9/11.
Yeah, but we've now had like a 20-year delay, and I
That's a great
still
point.
don't feel like
That's a
it's
good point.
working.
No, the first season, and I think we've talked about a lot of reasons why now. I think I understand. And I have been told that after the first season it does get better, which is much like many other Star Treks, right?
Right. And if they ended up hiring writers that knew Star Trek,
yeah, that makes
starting
so
the
much
second
sense.
season, then yeah, maybe. Because I think the pieces are there. They just haven't put them together at this point.
But it is time now for Will's Hollow Recs, which is the segment of our show where we give our Rikermendations for non-Enterprise related content that we've been consuming in our own personal holodecks this week. Jamie, you want to go first?
Sure. So I would like to recommend a video game that everyone who is listening to this who plays video games has already played. But my
called
recommendation is
Pong.
not to play this video game because you've already played it. My recommendation is to play it again, and that is Stardew Valley. I played it in the very first version not long after it first came out. I was very early on the Stardew Valley train, and I just started playing it again now many years later, and it is still so good. It's actually better than the first time. There's like more romance options now. In the most recent update, you can now drink the mayonnaise.
Oh, thank God.
Okay.
which I did do early in the game when I needed some energy and realized I had nothing else but mayonnaise.
Well, when life gives you mayonnaise.
I'm not someone who plays a ton of video games, so I don't often go back to video games. Usually once I'm done. But I went back to Stardew Valley, and it is somehow even better. So my recommendation is to replay Stardew Valley. And for anybody who maybe has not played it, it is a video game where you have a farm and there's a little town and you grow your crops and you have your animals and you do a bit of mining and then you give gifts to everybody in town and then date them all and then you marry one
Christian,
of
what are
them.
your recommendations?
This one is going to be a little bit of a reach, I think. Because I don't really want to recommend Survivor to people. But
No,
Survivor's
we
going
won't allow
on, and
that.
it's not bad by Survivor standards. I just finished a series of books that I'd stumbled across by a man named Drew Hayes. And he has a 4-book series, 4 giant books. And they are, I guess, technically young adult, but it's superhero fiction. And it's set around a college, that includes people with superpowers, where they come and not just go to college, but also learn to manage and use their powers. And if they get certified, they can become heroes. If they don't, they can either go back and come and try again, or they end up just not being able to use them legally, or they become supervillains. But there is an overall story that is fairly in-depth and grown up and likable characters. And for an audiobook to listen to while you're driving to work or walking the dog, I've found it really engaging. It's just called Superpowereds.
Is there a lot of like young adult drama? Because I love somebody who's not that into superheroes, I love anything that combines superheroes with like teenager or young adult personal
There's a lot of dating and, a lot of daddy issues, things like that. Yeah.
I love that. Because teenagers have such heightened emotions. Everything feels so much more important than it is. And then you add
there's
superpowers
plenty
into
of
that.
that.
Amazing. I love it.
Okay, Bill, what's your recommendation for this week?
I'm going to recommend a series about young, inexperienced explorers who train and are good at their job. This is an anime series called A Place Further Than the Universe, which is about a group of 4 Japanese high school girls who decide to go on an expedition to Antarctica. And they all have different reasons for going or wanting to go. It delves into their personalities, which are all individual and unique, and why they want to go and their interactions. And they train to go on this mission. It's part of the anime genre of cute girls doing things, but it's very heartwarming and they do a good job.
Bill, you recommended this to me like a year or so ago, and I watched it and I loved it so much. It was all I could talk about for like a couple weeks. I was telling everybody I know about it. I love it. I love it. And it really is just 4 high school girls go to Antarctica. And like deepen their frifriendships and see penguins.
That sounds right up my alley. I definitely need to watch that.
And like do work. Like the drama in it is like they're on the ship and they need to like it's their week to cook the food. And that's like the drama of the episode is like they have to cook food. I love it. And I like that it shows that you can get drama out of things. Like you don't need to have like a big bad. Like you can just like just normal things in your life.
Yeah, the first big obstacle is how do they get on this how do they get themselves assigned to this expedition?
Awesome. Well, my recommendation for this week is, I don't know if this is allowed, but it's more Star Trek. Star Trek Discovery started back up. The final season 5, started back up this week, and they dropped 2 episodes. And I, in preparation, because it's been quite a while since the end of season 4, I binged all of season 4 again. And you guys, this show is so good. I know that a lot of people did not like Discovery, and I do not understand why. I loved every season, but in particular, season 4 just sort of leans into Black lady excellence and queer excellence, and just how important, also, like, it goes into these questions about, like, the whole concept of Starfleet and how important that is, and it's just wonderful. And this final season, what they are setting up looks like just a big treasure hunt, basically, like a Tomb Raider style. We're gonna go find clues and find a treasure, and it seems super fun because, when the first episode, we were watching the first episode, and they go down to the planet, and I said, and this is absolutely true, I love it when Star Trek becomes Star Wars for a little while, and that's exactly what's happening. Like, they go down to a planet, and it's gritty, and it's dirty, and I love it, and I'm super, super excited for this season, and I'm bummed that it's the last season.
I just want to pause for a moment and point out that Maria on our Enterprise podcast recommended the new season of the very popular Star Trek Discovery.
I'm sorry, I know, but
for anyone who's listening to our Star Trek Enterprise podcast,
if you want to watch good Star Trek, check out Discovery. Thank you all. That's the episode. Thanks for listening. Next week, I will be watching the next episode called Civilization. And so I will be explaining it to Bill and Jamie. So we'll see you then. Special thanks to K.O. Myers at Particulate Media for sound assistance, to our friend David for the amazing cover art that he's done for us, and to John Stephen King for being the voice of our computer. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast app of choice, and tell your friends about it. We really appreciate it. You can follow us on Instagram at Enterprise Splaining, and on Blue Sky at Enterprise Splain. You can also email us any comments or questions, like, why are you doing this? To enterprisesplaining@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And if you want to support this podcast, you can find us at Buy Me a Coffee as Enterprise Splaining. And we will see you next week. Bye!
Computer and program.
I've got a atrial defibrillation. Someone get me to a doctor. Short of breath, finger tingling. I'm coming to you, Elizabeth.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.